What's up, guys? We are standing outside of the room. We're about to have our panel about the documentary Pixel Poetry, directed by Richard Cook, next to me. Handsome son of a gun. We're really excited, and we're all hoping that it doesn't go horribly. You guys having a good time? Yeah! Let's check it out. We got thumbs up. Thumbs up. Why is that the first thing people do when they're checking the mic? They're like, let me fucking touch it. Well, it feels like foam.
All right. Thank you all so much for coming. This is my first panel.
Yeah. Everyone, Richard is very nervous. So everyone, imagine him in his underwear.
He's going to be my ego.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
All right, so again, thank you all for coming. This panel, I did this panel because my film, Pixel Poetry, it's a film about how games have progressed as a creative medium and how we've come so far from our roots. So we're going to have a lovely discussion with you people, and we're going to do about 35 minutes of conversation, and we'll pass it to you guys for some Q&A.
Real quick, I'm curious, how many of you have seen Pixel Poetry?
Come
on, more hands.
More of you know now. So.
All right. Well, that's your
no more excuses.
Go watch it after this.
No excuses.
So this is like an hour-long trailer. The movie's really good.
Yeah.
You guys should watch that movie. It's awesome.
Excellent. So I think one conversation we can start out with. I've asked you guys a couple of this in the film about the indies. I feel personally that the indies. I work for Devolver Digital, so I feel that personally with the indies, they've done a lot for our industry recently, and helping us get into the better perspective of the public. So one question that I asked you guys in the film. I'm sorry?
You want to intro us?
Who are we?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
We don't know.
Who are we?
First panel votes.
Why am I here?
My name is Adam Sessler.
I'm Adam Sessler.
Okay.
I'm David Eddings.
Which is the real one? I can't tell.
Let me do this properly.
There's basically a lot of bald guys.
We alternated on purpose, so
Yeah.
keep the glare down.
I think Scott's got us covered.
Okay, I'll start with myself. I am Richard James Cook. I directed, edited, and wrote Pixel Poetry. I'm also a game developer. I study at UT under Warren Spector currently, with a few of these guys in the front row, and a couple in the back row. Yeah, and that's what I do right now.
It's a really good movie, so you should see it. I am Chris Wiseman. I go by Captain RedBeard. Captain RedBeard! It's like some people know who I am. I haven't got a single boo yet. That's really good. I have a YouTube channel called RedBeard TV, and I also am a host for GameStop TV.
Woo! I'm Patrick Scott Patterson, original PSP. I've been playing video games for a couple hundred years or something. Now I'm in this movie and a bunch of other ones, and got a TV show in development about these crazy adventures. And I'm here now. Yes.
On a crazy adventure.
And a crazy adventure.
Woo!
I'm Adam Sessler. I was the kitchen staff supervisor at a channel called ZDTV. You may have heard of it. And now I have my own company, Theory Head Incorporated.
My name's Tyler Coleman. I'm the founder of Retora Game Studios. I'm also in the program with Richard here, being taught by Warren Spector. So I'm excited to be here and really proud to be alongside these guys.
And our surprise guest, who just came in at the last minute.
My name is David, and I'm an alcoholic.
That's a true statement. I actually asked him to be on the panel last night when we were drinking.
We were.
My name's David Eddings. Is this on?
Oh, there we go.
There we go. I'm David Eddings with Gearbox Software. I'm the VP of BizDev Licensing and the voice of Claptrap and TK Baja in Borderlands.
Yeah.
I also prepared some slides today that have nothing to do whatsoever with the panel, but I just wanted to show off some pictures of my vacation. So
It was in Tijuana, so watch out.
All right. So back to that question again. Question I've asked you a couple in the film. Do you think indies have become a main catalyst for games to start being taken more legitimately in the greater public eye? We'll go and start with that.
Yes.
Next question.
But at the same time, and I completely agree that indies, because of the experimentation, because you have small teams, you're not investing as much money, so you can be risky. But I also want to say that does not preclude a AAA game from being able to be investigated and regarded as something that is art. But I think sometimes with indie games where you have the scope of the game, that it usually focuses on one particular game mechanic, something that may be familiar and then is maybe turned on its ear, that it really helps illuminate what is so fascinating and interesting inside of video games that might get kind of lost in the overall gestalt of something like a Dragon Age, where all those elements are there, but they're working in harmony, and it's really there to really kind of carry you along and not for you to kind of notice, what's working there underneath the hood in the design.
What I think is fascinating is how indie titles influence AAA titles. I mean, it's you have these studios that are just 1, 2, 3 people, and they make such an influential game that AAA studios obviously take note and either hire those people or try to mimic what their games do.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
My bad.
Well, I look at it a lot like what happened with the movie industry over time. The movie industry grew and grew and grew, and you started having these big studio, big budget productions, and you started having room underneath for these smaller films that were made with smaller budgets, smaller crew. And so ultimately the audience gets a great deal of variety, and a variety of art. And now video games have got that same thing. I mean, maybe something in a AAA title isn't what someone's looking for right now, but maybe in an indie title, because they can take that risk and because they're still doing it more for the love than the money, right?
Of course.
They can grab an audience's attentions, and I think the consumer wins.
So I think really this comes down to the total amount of voices that can be heard. With AAA, especially in the past few decades, it's a very specific amount of voices and a very specific set of voices. And what indie is, and really what it is more of the tool sets that we can use to create games. As they become more accessible, everyone can have their voice. They can make a form of game in the same way that like a garage band is making music at just a couple of friends hanging out after high school. Now that games can do that, we can see everyone say what they want to say in the form of game. And I think that AAA recognizes that, and there is this kind of echo chamber of conversation. Like it's a kind of a not really understood conversation of, oh, I saw this wonderful inspirational mechanic in a little indie game, and I'm now going to use that in Uncharted or something like that. So the more people we have making games, the more voices and kind of more we get to see.
I'm not sure that you can't be independent and still. What am I trying to say here? I'm not sure that the AAA games can't be independent. I mean, Gearbox is an independent company. We're not owned by anybody other than ourselves. And we're not beholden to anybody. We own our own properties, and so you can actually be independent and still get to the point of making AAA titles. And we've taken risk, and we try to combine genres and come up with something new and fresh and so on with a good promise. But I'm not sure that independent doesn't necessarily mean small,
No, I think we have a nomenclature that indie's now really kind of meaning a certain type of game and less kind of where the financing is coming from. And, it's kind of like what we would say about film back in the 60s, that you had French film. And that meant, black and white film with, different types of editing, and it's usually about children looking off into the distance. It's a theme.
Yeah, because that would certainly be something that you couldn't be like, well, I'm the voice of Claptrap in a small independent title called Borderlands.
What's funny is that, I think you guys are able to experiment by virtue of your independence, and there's something very valuable there.
All right, so let's talk about small titles then. Okay.
Yeah, I'd say Tales
Small
from Borderlands comes from what you're talking about. Your form of independent could not exist if a publisher owned that IP, or it wouldn't be you dictating it.
Yeah, what's funny is we came up with that literally just by having it was me and Richard Igo over at Telltale having drinks and came up with the idea for Tales from the Borderlands to even do it. You're right. It didn't take any suits to get that done. Yeah.
I mean, I think the other part I really like, I noticed this a lot, especially last year with indie, is, it's not fast to make a game, but there was a sense of something was showing up maybe once, 2 or 3 games a week, and suddenly, you have games like Needhog, where there were about 3 or 4 games that were similar. They were just kind of really fast. They're all about that combat and that kind of like split-second moment. I was terrible at them, but they all they're there. It becomes really exciting, and you get to have like this conversation about what makes that so compelling at this moment, and is it being served in any way in another game out there, and what that appeal is. That there's a better discussion, I think, sometimes that these indie games can can provide because they're more readily available. They're obviously a lot cheaper, and it really does. And I think that conversation is necessary, and it filters all the way up to AAA.
I mean, I think what you kind of hit on right there is it's all about the experience, right? So I have a lot of people who will ask me for a recommendation on a game. People go, oh, I have a PS4. I really love The Last of Us. Like, what's a game that's just like that? I'm like, well, The Last of Us is, like, in my opinion, the best game on the PS4. But what you're wanting is you're wanting another unique experience.
Yep.
You're not wanting what you just played. You're wanting something completely new and unique. And that's something that I think is really cool that, PlayStation really embraces is indie titles and all of the games they give you for free if you have PlayStation Plus, things like that. And of course Steam, the ability to get hundreds and hundreds of games. A lot of the indie games that are here at PAX, which is really cool to see that kind of presence. But ultimately it's about the experience, and that's the conversation that you have. And I think, kind of the core of the idea of what is art and how are games experienced. It's the experience, like Prince.
Well, I remember whenever I was, let me move this a little bit closer, if I can. All right, anyway. Now, I remember whenever I was, it's not even on, here you go. I remember when I was talking with you in the interview, and you had brought up Brothers, Tale of Two Sons.
Yeah.
And how that was one of the experiences that, was really enthralling to you.
I mean, it did something. It's something I had wanted a game to do. How many of you guys play Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons? Good. Not all of you, so I'm going to still dance around the ending of that game. But those of you who have played it know, it finally did this transition I've always wanted in a game where the controls actually became part of the narrative. And, we've always had this, I interact with the game, but the game's really just there on my television. And suddenly the game was also right there in my hands, and it had an emotional effect. And, it was just beautiful. It was, there's certain books like that are written in a certain way where they kind of lull you into a certain sensibility and then disrupt it just for that one particular effect. And it was just devastating inside of the game. And that's where, I mean, when you say art, you can be so many different things, but it was something that was unique to a game. It could not have been accomplished in any other storytelling medium, and it was just one of those just absolute aha moments. And that's why I like to pimp that game as if it was heroin.
I also think, some of these indies, obviously a lot of indie games borrow very heavily from a lot of classic games. And I think that kind of helps almost kind of keep the circle of life, I guess, in the video game world going. Because if you talk to most game devs at any level, they can pinpoint to games that they played when they were younger that influenced them or inspired them to get into that. And then now you have them producing these games that are the games that they would want to play. They would have wanted to have played 15, 20, 30 years ago. And then that brings other people up underneath and go like, well, that guy made a game, so I can get into this too. And you kind of still get that inspiration going and kind of keep bringing people in. And I think that's important because once the love is out of any type of art form, whether it be video games or anything else, the fun stops. It stops capturing your imagination. It stops leaving that impression on you.
Isn't that somewhat of an echo chamber, though? I mean, fearfully, does that mean that we're only going to learn from previous games, and inevitably, do we also need that experience from outside of games?
I would say yes, but I've been talking a lot, so I want someone else to jump in. But, I mean, I think we do need to have those outside influences. I think one of the things I find interesting about returning to certain forms that were maybe part of an arcade era or an Atari era is if you look at certain forms inside of a game, the jumping, the shooting, that kind of logic, it really is it's a language, and it's one that most everyone, I think, that's at PAX is kind of subsumed into themselves, and you just kind of know it. And that to sort of take that language and reform it again. It's a way of, discovering it. This sounds a little bit too high-minded, but kind of like where the English Renaissance writers wanted to return to classics. That's why you had a lot of stuff that took place in the Roman Empire. This sense of this era that they were wanting to compare themselves to, that they held in such high regard, that, they too were reaching this moment of enlightenment, of culture and things like that. And you can see some of that happening, especially in the indie games, that are trying to get back to some kind of core essence that they felt, maybe it has been lost since, obviously the technical limitations when you're making an arcade game. You could only do so much, and you had to make what little you had be a lot of fun.
I thought that that game company did a great job with like Flower, for instance, and it reminded me of basically playing the Vector Star Wars game, you know, where you're just flying all around, but you're on a little you know, flower petal or whatever, and you're on a gust of wind. You know what was great about that particular game in particular is that came out right when my second son was born, and he wanted to play video games, but he couldn't actually reach the buttons on the controller. But he didn't need to because it was just a 6-axis thing. He could just fly around, and it really opened up the world to him with small hands, you know. And I remember the first time I met Kelly Santiago as well. I just gushed all over. I was like, "Oh my God, I love this game!" And you know, she was taken aback because, first of all, she didn't think that anybody had even heard of her game yet. And, but you know, they did something that was really innovative and it was special. And then they were able to go on and do Journey, which was just amazing. Y'all all played Journey, right? Everybody here played it? Fantastic game. Really kind of rewrote some of the rules in a multiplayer game. It was completely different than anything we'd ever seen before. The problem, though, was that, you know, there weren't enough people that bought it. And it's really sad to see companies like that game company go away because, you know, there weren't enough people that were supporting that. And that was a fantastic, beautiful piece of art, and it was fun.
No, and it was one, especially Flower was the first time I think that we even presented, even though it didn't reach a wide audience. Right. It was like, here's a game that can offer an experience that is not predicated on challenge, and it can still be something that's really interesting and very, very compelling.
Very fresh.
We've seen a lot of stuff that's really kind of grown out of the accomplishment that was Flower.
I think what's important too is you were talking about, you know, telling the narrative through a game. I think a lot of developers, and something that always bothers me is comparing video games to movies. It's like, oh, you know, it's like on the scale of a movie that like our game is so big. It's like, well, no, you should tell your game like a game, because games can tell narrative unlike anything else, because you are then, you know, a part of it. Like you were saying, and like with Flower, like you are playing a gust of wind and you're actually controlling it yourself. So I've always found that fascinating, and I hope more developers, and I see it with indie developers a lot, in really encouraging like making games as a story, as a game, as opposed to like trying to make a game as close to a movie. You know what I mean? So
no, I think a lot of it always stemmed from just this insecurity complex in the game industry, that there's these other successful, not sexual.
What kind of games are you playing?
Right here.
Leisure Suit Larry.
What are you saying about the game industry?
He's excited to be here.
Adam plays the sexiest games.
I play Res without vibrating. You know, that's like, no, but we're just as successful. You know, oh, the industry makes this much money, but then there's like, yeah, but people seem to get more excited about movies, or they get more excited about music. And I think we're finally getting away from that. And that's why, look, I completely believe that games are art, but at the same time, it's not that we need an outside force to say, hey, you're art, you made it, now come die in this museum over here, that, you know, where, you know, it's not going to be vibrant or anything like that. That, you know, it is there. I think we're finally getting over that hump where, you know, and you've probably done it too. I've had so many games presented to me like, we did it in a really cinematic style. It's like, but I got a movie.
Yeah, we have movies.
I want the game.
Movies exist.
Yeah, and the thing is, a movie, you know, they only got 90 minutes or 2 hours to tell a story, you know. So why would a video game want to be a movie? Because I mean, a video game, you know, if it's telling us a story, especially these really deep ones, I mean, they could tell us a story that goes for dozens, even 100 hours or so, and that's great.
Especially when we can make movies about video games like Pixel Poetry, directed by my good friend Richard Cook. It's a fantastic documentary.
Circle of Life.
I think one of the issues here, you guys all heard the phrase of like, oh, it's our Citizen Kane of games. One of the issues there is like Citizen Kane really wasn't necessarily the best ever movie. It was the first movie that said, you know what, we don't have to be like theater. And that was when film said, we are our own form. Let's break out of the mold that theater has taught us. So really that concept, the Citizen Kane, is not like, oh, it looks a lot like a movie and we're as good as movies. It's that we're stopping hobbling ourselves by acting like a film. Yeah. So what is our Citizen Kane? Do we have one, you know?
Yeah, I think the other thing...
It would probably be Pixel Poetry.
Oh.
Yes. It's a great documentary.
But to your point, remember, very few people actually saw Citizen Kane when it came out. Yeah. Because, you know, William Randolph Hearst made sure that it did not make it into any theater, you know. And it didn't become Citizen Kane for decades later. Yeah. I think our Citizen Kane game has happened. We just don't know it yet.
Yeah, I mean, history, you know, reflection will make that more clear.
Yeah.
I think what we had talked about in our conversation in the film too is, like you said, all the movies in the beginning were Stallone, and we probably have a different perspective on this.
Yeah.
Just explosions coming out in black and white. But I find it pretty interesting too, because I think, at least from what we've grown from back in the 80s, like, you know, Pac-Mania and stuff like that, you know, it was more of a pop culture thing. And now we're, like you said, we're getting over those humps in terms of just legitimacy and coming out and showing people it's not just one narrow perspective. So I find that pretty interesting.
You know, I think that when you're talking about like the games of the 80s and stuff like that, we talk about this at Gearbox. Those are skill test games. Those are all games about how many points can you get, or how many levels can you conquer with so many lives or so much time, that sort of thing. And the games that we're making today are different types of experiences, and certainly you have some of those skill test games still, especially with some of the independents and whatnot. But really, it's more about fantasy fulfillment, you know, and you know, living the dream of what you want to do. If you want to be a race car driver, or if you want to be a space marine, or a World War II soldier, or something like that, right? And so I think our Citizen Kane may be the games that finally let you actually be the character. Like Legend of Zelda might be the Citizen Kane, if you will, or the Final Fantasy type of games that actually allowed you to feel like you were playing it, as opposed to you were an operator, you know, that was you know, moving a character around.
So why do we still call it game? So like, if you think of our original form of what game is, like soccer as compared to The Last of Us, like soccer is an evergreen hobby. It is something you can play soccer every day for the rest of your life. You can make a career out of playing soccer. We have games like that. I mean, League of Legends is huge now. Millions of dollars is on the line for this. Yeah, and these things exist. Whereas something like Last of Us isn't meant to be played every day for the rest of your life. It's a different experience. It's a visual novel. You know, it's an interactive story. I personally kind of have a grievance with the idea that we still call them game, just because we like to put all of this in, it's all game. Well, it really isn't. Like, it's a whole different beast, and I don't know.
No. I think it's also, you know, and I think I even struggled the past couple of years, you know, when you say game, you're invoking Mass Effect and Candy Crush. And that just, you know, it's just that, it's like, I mean,
they're the same game.
They are both.
If you look right beneath the surface, they're just.
But I mean, you know, they are both interactive, and you know, if you tried hard, you could still probably find some lineage. But yeah, I think the problem is interactive entertainment just sounds awful on the back of any box.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's just for the sake of like having a label. As a society, as human beings, it's easier for us to like just put a label on something and being like, well, it's just easier to explain. You know, if your friend were to call you up, like, oh, what are you doing, man? I'm video experiencing. Like I'm video experiencing the shit out of this video experience. It is so good.
Get in the back room of Blockbuster.
Exactly. It's one of their training videos.
Just like they're saying, just kind of a buzzword that people can understand. I mean, we're just now at a point where, you know, people who don't play video games are actually starting to even understand what they are, much less changing the term, and, you know, then having to re-explain it to them again. We got to start all that over again.
And the minority as well. So.
Well, I mean, but once again, I think it becomes a matter of language. Is that we kind of had this idea of game, and we all informally came up with a definition of what game is, and then we started to challenge what that definition is. And you know, there are some people who don't want to kind of give up. Then, you know, it's just, you know, if you really look at it, it's a word that's taken on so much potency and so much meaning, and it's probably time to retire it.
I think that what's really interesting about this is that
right here today, ladies and gentlemen.
You're no longer allowed to say game. Right.
We're all experiencers.
Experiencing.
We're all experiencers.
I hope you guys are experiencing this panel.
Experience.
So I think the challenge.
I just leveled up on my experience.
The challenge of the format, like if you look back at the early like entrance into surrealist and expressionist art, like that's a lot of what we are. So like our Duchamp's fountain might be. I don't know, gone home. You know, what is our experience? It's really just, its whole point is saying, is this a game? Like, is Dear Esther a game? That conversation comes out more when you talk about Dear Esther than your actual experience of Dear Esther.
Yeah.
Which, you know, whether the artist's intent was that, it still exists as an element of discussion of what that experience is.
You know, I mean, I think ultimately, like, what does it matter? You know, it's like people just use the labels because they're easy to understand, but like everyone in this room is here at PAX because you love games. And it's something that Scott and I have talked about a lot in the past, where it's like, well, what is a game? Like, you know, Candy Crush, it's a game. So people who are like, oh, I'm not a gamer, I get it all day. Like, oh, I haven't played games since Atari. I was like, I had an Atari too. I just didn't stop. But the difference is like it's a different kind of experience, and that's okay because it's such a multi-headed, multifaceted industry, and that's what's fascinating about it. It's like you can dabble in a little bit, and with games and AAA titles on a console or even on Steam, and you have like second screen applications where you can open. I know because I've been playing a lot of Assassin's Creed Unity, so there's like an app and you can do something, and like I'm experiencing two different kind of games at the same time. And that's actually really cool. So, and art.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, exactly. Well, and I talked to Kelly too in the film, and she was talking about the accessibility of mobile and stuff like that. And I think one of the bigger barriers is trying to get across deeper experiences onto that because it's the most accessible platform. So I got like particularly excited when I heard BioShock was being announced for mobile, even though I don't know really how well it might play, but
it's real good.
But
it's a great experience.
I really think that's the same problem though. That's the issue that we have when we try to be movies, is like the same when you try to port like, oh, let's just put BioShock on a small little mobile device. You're not actually doing something with the mobile device. So like games like Sword and Sorcery and Monument Valley, they do something with mobile. They use the form in their own way to kind of like express their art. So.
Well, and then there's I actually found out about the game because I was in the trailer for it, but it's a mobile game called Subterfuge. What's really neat about this is it's less the game that's happening on the screen. It's kind of a variant on Risk. What it really is taking advantage of the best part of Risk, which is making unofficial treaties and alliances. And this, you're just trying to make someone your friend for a couple of days until you screw them over on the third day as you try to play this game over 7 days. And that's that's really cool. Is it art? I don't really care. But when you start thinking about in those new ways that all of it doesn't have to take place on the screen on a mobile device. Mm-hmm. Or that's where you can start to investigate it, and someone is going to start to see those opportunities and make something that maybe everyone's going to say is an emotional experience or gets closer to that sense of art. And I think the same thing is going to happen with the second screen experience. Right now, it's mainly a commercial objective, but that's usually how art gets made.
Yeah,
it starts with a commercial intent. That's how we ended up with film. The Great Train Robbery, no one's like, God, that rocked. No, they just were trying to show off what film was. Once there was that commercial availability, that then allowed the artist to kind of step in to that framework.
Yeah. Once they start getting challenged to come up with something different than what's already there, because especially nowadays, society gets bored with things real quick. I mean, it has to evolve really fast now. And so, it's going to
try to keep the panel interesting at least, though.
One thing that's really fascinating about this topic is the documentary. When Richard actually set out to make this movie, the very first question and what you were trying to cover was essentially just, are games art?
Yeah.
And then you discovered, you were on a Destructoid?
Yeah, it was a Destructoid article, and I ended up getting into a discussion with the people, and it turned out, it was just a tired debate to them. So I tried to expand the meaning of the film a little bit more so that it covered more about not just the art stuff, but all these other struggles, the violence and game stuff and all that. The things that have kind of just held us back from becoming as legitimate as we possibly can. There's never going to be an absolute on the end of it to where we're going to be accepted by everybody, of course. But I think a lot of the stuff recently have certainly helped us get over that hump.
So I think one of the other interesting kind of forms of art that we're looking at is the performance art of video games. Yeah. So this is I'm really excited about this, even though personally I don't play a lot of competitive games, is that I'm now seeing the value of these competitive matches being an art form on themselves. In the same way that if you were to watch Ronaldinho on the field, I know I keep going soccer, I'm sorry for everyone from America.
Sports!
Sports! It's the equivalent of figure skating or something like that. I'm starting to see in my mind that these league players and Street Fighter players are on this whole new form of art that's coming out of games, which is really exciting.
I'll compare it to boxing. Because I absolutely love boxing. Watching a good boxer like Ali or Mike Tyson, there was an aesthetic to what they were doing. And I think you can see the same thing in how certain StarCraft and League players actually perform, even assuming that you can actually read what's happening on the screen. I think that's the biggest challenge.
And that being said, there is a shocking lack of excellent figure skating games out there. You guys, this is a huge market.
Eddings, we're looking at you, man.
figure skating. You could throw Tanya Harding in there and then all of a sudden be a fighter. Right?
Yeah, what a twist, right?
That shit would be great.
Remember, I play NHL hockey.
Sounds like the topic for Pixel Poetry 2.
Yeah, the DLC.
The DLC, yeah, figure skating. Pixel Poetry 2.
Yeah, and I've been to a couple of the MLGs, and I watch Evo Online and stuff like that. It's like watching a whole different game.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm seriously impressed with just as far as that whole part of it has gotten, like eSports, and I've seen all the stadiums filled out and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
It's like, how can you not legitimize this now is with this kind of feedback from all these people?
I mean, it's legitimate. Where it isn't is just a couple of people with a microphone. I think what really is so interesting is what defines art. I mean, look, if you look at a lot of contemporary art, like someone like Jeff Koons, who makes a really garish statue of Michael Jackson in bubbles. Mm-hmm. And it sells for millions and millions of dollars, and that is still heavily debated if that really is art. I can't stand Jeff Koons. I'll grant him artistic status, but he really is sort of an agitator like that. And that and that's one of the oldest. Representational art is as old as it gets, and that fight is still happening here. I think what's really neat about video games is we've reached those points, like Gauguin, suddenly having blue trees in Tahiti. That's happening like every 5 years, whereas back it took a couple hundred years to start to find those moments of challenge. And I think maybe because we are changing and finding new platforms so quickly, it's really hard to kind of get a handle on all of it and then slap art on top.
Yeah, I mean, and that's again, like, I think the way the movie progressed is that it became how are games perceived. Because this whole conversation has led, well, is it art? And the answer is, well, yeah, but it kind of doesn't matter. And, well, yeah, but depending on how you view it. Because games are also eSports. Games are an experience. Games are what they kind of mean to you. And ultimately, at the core, that's what art is, right? Art is objective. Like, what do you get out of this? I use a lot of the screen capture kind of thing, like on the PS4. Like, I was playing The Last of Us, one of my favorite games, and so you can add filters and stuff. I use that application way more than it just being kind of a gimmicky feature, because it's like Instagram inside of a game.
Created a Last of Us photo album on Twitter for a while.
I did.
There's a really great article, professional photographer went into GTA.
Yeah.
And he started a Tumblr of all the photos he took, and he was using his knowledge and skills of photographer to create this beautiful form of art within art. It's,
that's
amazing.
Really cool.
Yeah, it is. I mean, at some point, I was even kind of joking, I think, in a conversation with y'all last night, I dare anyone to take a good screen capture of one of these games now with these rich environments and these identifiable characters in these situations. You can almost frame some of those stills. I mean, that could be art within itself.
I remember playing Red Dead Redemption, and the first time that you went up to the mountaintop and you could see over, and you're just like, wow, it's just taking it all in. I remember playing Unreal, the very first Unreal, and seeing that the waterfall and the sky and the moon, and it was amazing. It was breathtaking.
Yeah, you're struck by it. It leaves an impression with it.
I spent so much time in Skyrim just looking at shit. I'd climb up a mountain. I'm like, that looks awesome.
Oh, I'm dead.
Yeah, it's like, well, I probably should have stood there too long because there's a dragon.
20 hours and you're still level 1.
But Morrowind was one of those times where it really just kind of hit me, what's going on? Yeah, because it was obviously so shocking when that game came out.
Yeah.
Something that big, that diverse in its topography.
Had that much detail.
And everything was hand-placed. And I almost got neurotic. So I was like, I should at least acknowledge what they did by going into every store and just assessing the goods there. But it started to just make me nuts. I'm like, well, they put that plate there. Why is the plate there? There's intention there.
It's got to be there.
What does it do?
I mean, that's the problem I have with linear games. Is I'm like BioShock Infinite or any BioShock game. I go forward a couple hundred yards and then I just backtrack because I'm like, there was a cafe. I should probably check it out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm really glad I sifted through that garbage because I got 5 coins.
And I think that's where it does get a little bit challenging. Not so much our games are, but how to read games. And that because it's made by a team of people, and you don't even kind of have the same sense of auteur as you do in film, where there at least is sort of an imperial body in the director up at the top of it that takes responsibility, that what is sort of artistic intention in the game versus something that's more a result of the craft and everyone putting the game together and playing it in a certain cultural context. that you can derive from it. And we're really struggling, I think, still to figure out what that language is and how to look at games and how to read them. And I think a lot of it, we want to go the more traditional way, like everything had meaning or is deliberate, whereas there's something so kind of beautifully messy and sloppy about the experience of playing the game that, not to sound like a complete nerd right here, but that it's very post-structuralist, and you can just start drawing these amazing meanings out of it because whatever you're experiencing is probably absolutely unlike what anyone else is getting out of a game.
So I think like the absolute unique element that we have of games is the ludo narrative, your personal narrative experiencing that art form. So you can't look at the Mona Lisa and be like, man, let me tell you about when I saw the Mona Lisa. What it was. Like it's the same Mona Lisa. We have two experiences. You have the narrative, the actual narrative intended by the author, and then your own personal narrative. And I think that's what that is personally why I'm interested in games. Like that is my appeal, is that I want to have my own experience, and then I also want to experience something that has been provided to me by someone with artistic intent.
No.
And how do we differentiate between the two in dialect?
And where is that line? Where does game stop and I begin?
Well, but that, like you touching on too, that's always one of the things that's most fascinated me. Especially, this goes back a little bit too to some of the eSports discussion. The game is designed to be played, one certain way or one certain way in mind. But when you put that into the hands of the audience, no two people are going to play that the same way. And in some cases, especially when you get some of these competitive players and stuff, it's almost like they create their own way of playing.
Because they're going to play it better than you.
That wasn't even the original intent of how to play it. Sometimes like the developers of those games come and see how these people are playing it, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that they created their own style in there that wasn't even within the intent, and you're not going to do that with any other type of art form.
Character class gets nerfed, right?
Then they load a patch and screw the whole thing up. No.
I think that's also kind of the part that drives, I think, certain people that are more sort of traditional in how they're trained to look at art and culture, because the game you get may not be the same thing that it is a year from now. There is no precedent for that.
There is Star Wars.
Batiste didn't.
Well, there is Star Wars.
How do we react to that one?
Stop breaking your own movies.
It's actually no. They did put clothes on people in the Sistine Chapel, so that's probably the closest to the other.
Did they? That's lame as hell.
Yeah. At one point, he was completely naked, and one of the popes not cool.
Or they epoxied that King Tut thing on Jim the other day too. So that changed.
Once again, it's one of those really fascinating, not troubling challenges that we have in this discussion of how to read and how to evaluate games from sort of an artistic perspective, because there's nothing fixed. Both my input into the game that changes that experience, and the fact that the game can and probably will change in the years that come.
So I think that's the interesting element of the technology that we have to deal with. So looking at other games, kind of chess. When was the last time chess technology has changed? When was the last chess patch? There actually is one, by the way. Check out Chess 2 by Serlin Games. It's really amazing. But the point is that certain forms, like board games, there is no changing in technology. We got to update, so it's on now.
There's Wizards chess.
Yeah, all right.
It plays by itself.
Yeah. So we have that in games. There are still purists, let's say, that still play Counter-Strike 1.6, and they swear to it, and that's the original, and it's the best version and stuff. But we have technology that we just have to accept is going to constantly be changing our form until we reach that peak where it's just okay, we're good. Our tech is where it needs to be, but this is no longer a problem. Uncanny Valley's been fixed. All these problems have been resolved. And I think until that occurs, a lot of these more evergreen hobbies, they're not truly evergreen. How long till the next League of Legends comes out and everyone's like, oh, well, I guess I got to start over.
Well, and I think that's even a unique challenge for esports or competitive gaming, because you look at professional football or soccer or baseball. There's rule changes and things like that over time. The athletes learn new things and get better, but the basic game is still recognizable and still the same. Whereas you don't almost can't predict what is going to be the hot game in esports. Games will come and go. People will lose interest in competing in this game, and a whole new one will rise. And that creates a challenge that doesn't exist in any other form of competition, especially since this competition kind of goes with an art form.
Got to learn a new type of soccer.
There you go. Exactly. I mean, could you imagine?
Square now.
Well, yeah. Could you imagine?
This game is impossible.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine learning?
Change as you go along.
Yeah, you imagine learning how to play football at a young age, and then by the time you get a chance to go pro, suddenly you're like, okay, this is out. We're using laser guns now.
I still did. I never learned. Problem solved.
He was ahead of the curve.
That's right. I'm not touching that football. Sports.
Relates to pixel poetry, right?
So, I have a curveball question for 3 of you.
More sports.
Oh, no sports. I've asked 2 of these guys this in the film, and I would like to know how you would describe video games to Leonardo da Vinci. Adam?
God, that's a good question.
Look into his eyes. Stare at him.
Well, you would have to explain to Da Vinci that you're going to do this painting. You're going to get the outline going of the cap, the beard, the cup. Then you're going to hand me the brush. And I'm going to do a lot more, and I'm going to fill in everything else. But that whole process is what the art is. It's not it's not even 2 stages of it. That entire experience is what a video game is.
That was a good damn answer.
Yeah. That was good.
This Sessler guy.
Tail's over.
This guy's smart as hell.
So,
good luck, guys.
Da Vinci is a character, like who we think we know who he is.
Yes.
Like, he's very systematic. His approach to things was very technical, and I think I would approach it as explaining the form of game as he would have known it in his time. I mean, games existed then. There was play, and I would try to explain that play put it in a form of art. So the play of an art form. And I would more aim at teaching him or trying to show him what a video game is in terms of the more evergreen, the eSports and things like that. Because I think that the non-narrative experiences are what could actually be portrayed to someone such as him in a way that is actually just contextual to what existed in the Renaissance era. So, it's play with art. You play with art.
Yeah. Although I like the idea that if I was able to show a game to Da Vinci, I mean, I'd probably be like hung within seconds. What demon magic is there?
And then all of a sudden, Bill and Ted show up.
That's
and
what I'm
they're
saying.
like, "What the shit is this?" Oh, it's a phone booth. We don't have those either.
Just take him to the mall and the water park, and you're square.
What game would you show him? One game.
Are you asking me?
What? What?
You could show him one game. What would you show him?
The Last of Us.
I think that might be.
Yeah, I'd be like, these are called clickers, and if you look at the shit.
I'd show him Assassin's Creed because he's in it.
Yeah. He's like, I haven't thought of the helicopter yet. And you're like, ooh.
No.
It's like a ripple in time.
In the future, you're even more famous.
You're in a video game.
I would want to show something that isn't that close, like where we all feel very comfortable saying it's art. So like something like a Halo, something that's more kind of representative of game in the popular imagination. Just to see how he would react before I get hung up and shot for demon magic.
Or what about
for your demon magic?
These are Italians.
Or what about something like Minecraft and kind of like where you can go your own way on this. You're put right here.
You show him Minecraft, and he's like, these graphics suck.
But no, because
why is everything square?
But that's
like the soccer we just invented.
but that's the beautiful thing about Minecraft. They just put you here and have at it. You're good to go. And you talk about a game no two people play the same way.
All right, David.
I don't want to show him a server that already exists because he'll see all.
Well, no, starting fresh for sure.
David, what would you say to Leonardo da Vinci in the voice of Claptrap?
I have to bone up my Italian first, actually. I don't think you'd understand at all. But, the one game, I tell you what I wouldn't give him is I wouldn't give him Candy Crush, because you know he's just going to be like hitting you up for invites over and over and over again. First of all, he's your only friend on Facebook, too, right? It's not admitted yet. So anyway,
God damn it, Da Vinci! I said no notifications.
Send my messengers over to you. It says, wouldn't thou play Candy Crush with me or whatever? But honestly, I have no idea what I would say to Leonardo da Vinci. I would be using my time machine for other reasons completely. So,
Grays, sports, all that.
Go back in time, put some money on the Cubbies.
Yeah, so.
All right. Well, I think we got about 18 minutes left, so we can pass over some Q&A for you guys if anyone wants any questions.
You guys want to line up? We got microphones, I think. Is that how this works?
Yes, I think it's
Yeah, because some of us are up here a little bit. We're going to need a microphone to hear.
There's a microphone
right there.
Right there. Freestyle.
Hi there, and thank you for being here. My question is regarding, as you talk about gaming and the experience, and as you talk about culture and art and the film part of it, how do you choose something like music and sound that is so iconic on Star Wars, on Super Mario, on any movie, and also to that memory as you're playing that game? So sounds and music, how do you choose that as you're designing?
You mean as I was doing the film or anything?
Well, to all of
As a developer?
as a filmmaker, but also as a developer, and for the gamer to experience that journey.
You know, if I can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that's interesting to me is how important that the sound is, and quite frankly, a lot of developers really tack that on at the end. We kind of joke about it sometimes. The audio guys are the ones that have one of the hardest jobs, right? Because people come in and just like, hey, I need this jingle, it needs to be snappy. Just write it real quick. Come on, it'll only take you about 3 minutes or so, right? But what's interesting is that if you play a game that has bad sound design, that doesn't have a good score, there's something about it that feels wrong, and you may not be able to put your finger on it, but it'll feel icky in a way, right? You know, it's kind of like if you've ever seen like that end of the Star Wars where they took the score out, and they're just kind of like standing around and doing nothing. All of a sudden you realize, like, wow, without the score, there's really no reason to even have that kind of those scenes, right? But I think that, you know, you have some games that clearly they put a lot of time and effort into creating, into composing the score, and I think other times it's just a kind of a choice where somebody just grabs something that has been in something else. But it just really depends, probably a lot on budget more than anything else, you know, how you do that. But
I think also, though, some of the best scores, you don't notice them because that's the score doing its job.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's supposed to be doing.
I'm thinking of, there's a special theater in Beirut, Germany, where like all the Wagner operas, it was designed to Wagner specifications, and one of them was you don't see the symphony. It's terrible. It's 110 degrees, and these poor bastards are just working like hell. But he always wanted the idea of a collected experience, that you weren't able to see the art for its part. It was just how it all worked together organically. And I think games get really close, especially the ones with good music. Mm-hmm. You know you're enjoying yourself, and there's something orally pleasing, but you actually aren't paying attention to what it is.
Yeah, a lot of times the score is used as cues as well. You know, like, okay, there's something exciting is about to happen, or something scary might be around the corner, or this is a point where it seems like I can rest a little bit, maybe even to.
I killed all the locusts.
Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question, but we just ran along.
All right, hey, she's happy.
You hire someone who's really good at their job.
Thank you guys for coming. Adam, I tried Brothers A Tale of Two Sons because of a tweet that you did like back in the day. So thank you for that. It's a really emotional game, and it really...
It's something, isn't it?
Yeah. I was wondering how you all felt about story, how important story is in games, and is there any examples of video games that hit you emotionally like Brothers did for me?
I think it really kind of depends on the game. You know, like not all games have to have a really deep story. Some games are just meant, to pick up and kind of be disposable. It's like pop music. I really like pop music. You wouldn't think so with his magnificent beard. Love it. That new Taylor Swift album, off the chain.
He was singing it last night at the bar. I was. I don't remember that much.
Who's
But
your favorite member of One Direction?
the shitty hair one. That's all of them, though, right? But no, that's the thing, though. It's like pop music is supposed to be disposable. Like you listen to it, you enjoy it for a bit, and then you kind of don't care about it, the next day. But there are certain games that don't really need to have a super rich, deep story, but are good to have one. I certainly love Games like The Last of Us.
Yeah, I think what he's talking about, I think that's I think that is what it is. I mean, because film. He said pop music, films do the same thing. I mean, it depends. There's movies out there that have deep story that are gonna touch you and make you feel different emotions or remember things. Then you got those summer blockbusters that are just there to make money, and there's people that like explosions, and that's all they want. They just want a popcorn flick for 90 minutes, and then they're done with it. And
I do want to add, if you haven't played Papa EO, is that one's really good. It's kind of on par with that. It's really cool. It's a story about a little boy. You basically kind of lead this big monster, but the monster is a representation of his alcoholic father. It's really, really good. So Papa EO, if you haven't played that, very good.
I think for me, the games that stories best resonate are the ones where the gameplay and mechanics actually kind of tie into it. Journey's story is told through how you play it. Like, it's not a specific, I'm not being told a story like a film. So I personally am more a fan of games like Minecraft that are just kind of open simulation of play. And those stories are just as strong. The story that you get from playing Minecraft, that time you and your friends built a fortress, that is, to me, just as strong of a story as the story that the original artist intended. And when you merge those two, when you have that collective where that is what our art form is. That is what makes us unique and makes us better than everyone else.
It's because you allow for an ownership over the story. I think that's why people seem to get so passionate and so attached to games. And despite my feelings on it, I kind of understand the massive freak out about Mass Effect 3. Is that people had invested themselves into this narrative. They felt it was kind of an extension of them. So when it suddenly, did a left turn for a lot of people at the end, that wasn't the game that was disappointing them. That was like themselves having experienced their own disappointment. I mean, it was, you see it.
Yeah, it hit them.
They were experiencing it too hard.
I still think it was being experienced a little beyond what was.
It had a mass effect on them. That was gold, people. That was comedy gold. You're welcome.
That was art.
Your future at BuzzFeed.
That was art.
Top 10 game puns.
I said something stupid. You won't believe what happened next.
They booed.
Pixel Poetry is essentially him doing this for about an hour straight.
It's a great documentary. But yeah, so great games.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for coming and sharing. So I wanted to ask back to the point on indie games. So it seems like there's a better, exposure to them, but it still seems like there's a lack in PSN or XBLA or even Steam. I think we're going the right direction as far as Steam Greenlight and even the iOS store. But how do you think we close that gap? Because even on the expo floor, I was talking to a couple of developers.
Yeah, so I think we have. Honestly, there's just as many wonderful indie games on Steam and PSN and Xbox as there are AAAs now. I think that gap is a bit of a remnant of the past, especially the past gen consoles. Xbox Live Indie Games was about the most atrocious thing ever. XBLA was wonderful, but their avenue was just terrible. And now with this new generation of consoles, it's been addressed, I'd say, by all three manufacturers. And Steam is really there for us as indies. And I'm no longer worried about distribution. I'm worried about getting my voice heard. It's the PR and marketing, because now there's so many of us. It's almost the opposite problem.
It's the positioning. If you feel that there's not as many independent indie games as there are AAA titles, it just goes to show that they're not able to actually make you aware that they even exist, right? And there lies a problem. There's the difference between having a AAA title or a non-indie game that has marketing behind it, where they can let the world know. They can't make you buy it, they can't make you play it, but they can at least make you be aware that it's there, right? And then you have to make that decision yourself. I think that what happens is word of mouth is a great way.
Tweets by Adam.
There you go.
But I think the Steam platform in particular is really, really good at allowing people to be aware that it's there. But sometimes, even on the consoles, if you're not really deeply searching, you may not ever see anything, And I think that's going to change as the way that we treat media, as we all have a voice. I think we're going to see that uptick a little bit. It'll be easier to find those indie games.
I mean, I think hopefully we'll start to see a couple business models shift.
Yes.
I'm not saying like the Netflix model is a good one, but just to use as sort of a point of comparison, like by virtue of a subscription, you suddenly have access to a set of titles. So you kind of really reduce that barrier of, okay, is this where I want to spend my $5? Is this where I want to make that decision? That just, if the game was just presented to them, I think that's going to that's going to make people more comfortable with the idea of playing something that's new, that's experimental, that doesn't look like the last game that they just played. There has to be an effective business model that remunerates gentlemen like this. But I think that, once again, it is a business issue, and there is an evolution happening right now that will start to manage that, because the indies will not go away.
Just remember, you vote with your dollars. And that's the most important thing for indie developers such as myself, is that your dollars speak to whether I stay in business. So. Yeah.
Well, I think a certain extent of it can go from within as well, because I can be in, kind of joking a minute ago they talked about like Adam's tweet or whatever, but that's, I think, something that can be done from within as well. Is you could talk in a private conversation with someone and be like, yeah, I tried this indie game and I really liked it, and then that's as far as it goes. And if there's an indie game that grabbed hold of you or whatever, I mean, we all got a voice with social media, we all got a thing out there. Tell it to the world, help it out, because I mean,
word of mouth is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like indie movies, like Pixel Poetry,
exactly,
made by the director Richard Cook.
But make some noise, and some of that will happen over time by itself as well, because it is still an evolving thing. But I mean, some of it is, we can help out too. If we see an indie game we think kicks ass, man, tell the world about it.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, Richard, just so these guys know, how can they find Pixel Poetry?
Well, right there.
He created a slide for it.
Wait, are you saying that there's this thing that exists in a non-physical space that somehow houses information and visuals?
It's called the internet.
What a magical world we live in.
Yeah, pixelpoetrymovie.com will be releasing the special edition of the film on the 30th on GOG.com. And we'll have the making of it.
You guys should watch it. It's a really good documentary.
Hey guys, so I have a question. There are a lot of other movements that go on, and a lot of other art forms that you look at, like the French New Wave or like surrealists or things like that. Do you see anything going on in video games right now that will kind of look into the same regard?
Retro.
In a few years.
So indie is so retro, like we were talking about before, that kind of echo chamber of us revitalizing the memories from our past. I mean, right now, I would say in 30 years, we're going to look back and be like, why were these guys doing all this stuff in pixel art? Like, they had technology.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that there are a lot of changes, but it's also very much per genre, or per kind of like theme. So like, you look at a rom-com from today as compared to something like Woody Allen did 20 or 30 years ago, like, there's a clear difference in any individual genre, as well as just the overall form itself. So I think you can see a lot of those little like waves of change.
Except for Love Actually, that movie stands the test of time.
Well, I almost don't think you can predict that sort of thing too with any form of art. I mean, every so often, in the music industry, you'll get one act that just comes along that no one really knew that that's what they wanted yet, and it comes along and just bam, it changes everything. The Beatles or Nirvana did or whatever. And I think there's video games that have done that, and there's video games that will do that. I don't think sitting there being like, well, this is what the test market thinks the customers want. Sometimes it's going to maybe take a little experimentation, and let it happen.
Time will tell.
But I think you're right. I don't think, say the Beats, Ginsberg didn't turn over to, Ferlinghetti and say, hey, let's name ourselves the Beats, and we'll be a group with similarities and stuff. That was a fix on them by the other media, and really didn't take any coinage for probably another 10 years until after the Beat movement had actually died. But I think I can't wait to see how we talk about the retro movement that goes on now, 10 years from now when indies have changed significantly.
Thanks, guys. All right, I think we only have time for one more, unfortunately. I'm so sorry.
Hi guys. Thanks for doing this panel. I was interested in what your thoughts are about mods and how people kind of take their own games or take other people's games and kind of apply this new finish to them, their own voice, not necessarily creating a whole new game to tell a story, but rather taking these like Skyrim, GTA, and stuff like that.
I love that. In fact, I'm disappointed a little bit that more games aren't more open. That allows that. I know back when I was just getting in the industry about 18 years ago, it was Doom and Quake that allowed so many people to get jobs in the industry. In fact, a lot of guys at Gearbox started making Doom levels and Quake levels and so on, and that's how they were found out. And you know, once some of the publishers started kind of closing that off and not allowing people to do that anymore, I think it hurt our industry in a way. And you know, what's amazing is Minecraft is doing that now. My sons are 13 and 9, and my 13-year-old is modding Minecraft, and he's been creating some things in that I've been amazed at. But it's got him interested in actually making games for real, and he's doing it, right? So I think that's a very, very important part of our industry is to give the consumer the ability to take that and then change it up and do something different. You know, I mean, you wouldn't have Counter-Strike if you weren't allowed to mod Half-Life, right? And you wouldn't have a lot of games if you wouldn't have Modern Warfare. You know, if you hadn't allowed that.
So I mean, it's fascinating because once again, where's the ownership?
Right.
Whose work is it? You know, it plays so many wonderful games with the sense of attribution and intent, and that, like that's the most awesome part about it. That really distinguishes games, which really. Games, in many ways, is like a big middle finger to conventional wisdom of how you're supposed to regard art and culture. And I think mods might be the best example of that.
Yeah, I wish every game was open and allowed mods.
Yeah, I think that if it was embraced a lot, I mean, I think, you know, sometimes they look too much at, you know, okay, you know, how they fear this might hurt their bottom line or this or that, and it's just like, you know, it goes back to before, you know, the gamer wants to be in control. You know, and I think that's great to give them that opportunity.
So
I wish more would.
Wonderful system by Matt LeBlanc, the 8 Kinds of Fun. So he breaks down like the different ways that you can be entertained, and what we're really talking about is expression. And for me, like that's one of the most important things that games do. Like Minecraft is expression. It's almost purely the art of expressing yourself. It's creating form. And I think what's great about mods is it allows that to exist in an otherwise narrative structure or gameplay structure that wouldn't be possible. So like expression in Counter-Strike is what? You throwing a grenade rather than firing a gun. Like it's not really that expressive. But then making mods for Counter-Strike absolutely is. You know, it is a great way for us to allow, as developers, a new form of fun within our the space that we have made available for players. So,
thanks.